Hello, everyone. Hello, hello. Let me know if you can hear me. I want to make sure that we are all good with the sound. Say hello to everyone. Let me know where you are joining me from, and let me know if you can hear me. I'm going to wait until I see a couple of yeses before I go ahead and get started. But thank you all so much for joining me. Today, we are jumping into budgeting percentages. This entire day, this entire month, actually, I'm going to be talking a lot about budgeting and percentages and just different things that we can do with our overall budget to make sure that we're staying on track. I feel like March is like the perfect time to really start to talk about this, because this is the time where we have set all of our goals at the beginning of January, and then we start to fall off track around February and March. We're really usually pumped and ready to go with our financial goals, and then we usually start to fall off around like mid February, early March. So that's why I wanted to dive into this topic and really start talking a little bit more about money to make sure that we're still staying on track overall for the things that we're going to do. So awesome. So happy that you all are able to join me today. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to share my screen. And if this is your very first time joining me on any type of live, welcome. My name is Elena, and I am the owner of The Organized Money. I help people organize their life and their money through the use of a paper planner. So I talk a lot about planning. I talk a lot about how to use a budget planner and how to use a life planner in order to organize your life. I really do believe that you are able to stay organized if you write it down. A large percentage of the things that we remember, it is statistically said that 42%, we're more likely to do 42% of the things that we have written down. So writing things down is a really big component of making sure that you get organized and that you get some things done. So I also do two things outside of YouTube and outside of teaching classes and posting videos. The first thing is I do one-on-ones. So if you are looking to do a one-on-one with me, you can schedule a one-on-one where I will jump in and talk specifically about your situation, finances, or you're just looking to create some type of custom system, custom planning system that is going to work for you. As you all know, I have created my own custom system that really works for me. Other thing that I have is a group coaching program called The Organized You. I talk a lot about The Organized You mainly because I meet with them every single Thursday, and we do a live class over there every single Thursday. They are able to text me. You get discounts on all of my services and products. We have a book club each and every month where we will talk about a specific book. And this upcoming Thursday, we are talking about Money Honey. That's the book club that we're doing for this particular Thursday. So if you're part of Organized You, I will see you in that particular class. I also do a monthly giveaway over there. You have access to a private Facebook group, and you have access to a private podcast. And I usually will do podcasts at least once or twice a month over there. It's $25 a month if you're interested, and I will leave it linked in the description box after this class is over, so that if you wanted to book a one-on-one and just find out about your personal situation, or you're looking to do the group coaching program where you get all of access to all of these other things that I've talked about, then both of them will be linked in the description box after this class. So let's go ahead and jump into today's class. Like I said, we're going to be talking about budget percentages. I'm going to be talking about, should you even use them? We're going to talk a little bit about what are they. I'm going to tell you about my budgeting buckets. I have 7 budgeting percentages that I usually will classify my budget under. I call them under my budgeting buckets. So I will share with you my personal budgeting buckets as well and my budget percentages. All right. But We're going to highlight the agenda. Also, if you have a question, please note I do answer questions at the end of every single session. So I will ask you to just put hashtag Q. Hashtag Q allows me to quickly look through the comments and be able to see if you have any questions, and I will highlight them and then I will answer them at the end of today's session. So just remember hashtag Q for any questions. Today's class, we're going to go quickly into a class disclaimer. I'm going to give you some examples of budgeting percentages, who could possibly use budgeting percentages, my personal budgeting percentages, and who this method probably won't work for. So we're going to talk about who it will work for and who it probably won't work for. So I wanted to give you all of that in today's class. So let's go ahead and get started with the class disclaimer. So the reason why I started doing a class disclaimer is mainly because I feel like a lot of times I will jump on, I will talk on live, and I will tell you about a specific system. It could be a system that I am currently using. It could be a system that I am not using at all. If I am talking about a system, that does not mean that it automatically should apply to you, your situation, or your life. Personal finances are very, very, very personal, and everyone's situation cannot fit in one size fit all box. Every situation will not fit under the perfect system. So I talk about different things that you could possibly do, but it does not mean that this is specifically going to work for you. So I don't want you to get discouraged or feel like if we're talking about these percentages that you should definitely make them work for your life and for your family and for your situation. That could not be the case. That definitely could not be the case. When I first started budgeting, this system did not work for me at all. I could not figure out a way to make it work. And we're going to talk about a couple of the reasons why it did not work for me later on. Now it does work for me. Now it currently does work for me. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, but I wanted to put out that disclaimer because a lot of times people will get discouraged after the class if they feel like a specific system doesn't apply or doesn't work for their life. Then all of a sudden they feel like that they can't do it at all. And I just wanted to put it out there that that's not the case. If this doesn't work, we could talk about another system next week that will work for you, right? So I just want you to keep that in your mind and make sure that you don't get discouraged. We're listening to this to see if it could possibly work, but if it doesn't, then we will find something else that does, all right? So let's go ahead and get started. First thing I wanted to identify is budgeting percentages as a whole. If you've never heard of budgeting percentages, I feel like a large majority of you probably have. Please put it in the comments. Let me know right now. Have you heard of these type of budgeting percentages or budgeting rules? The 50, 30, 20 rule, which is 50% goes toward your needs, your fixed expenses, all of your bills. 30% goes toward your wants or your variable expenses. So that's things like food and things like entertainment and shopping and all of the other variable things that we want. And then 20% goes toward debt and savings, right? So it's the 50, 30, 20 rule where you put 50% toward your bills, 30% toward your wants or your variable expenses, and then 20% toward your debt and your savings. It seems like a lot of you have heard about this rule. A lot of you have heard about this rule. The other one is like more of a simplified version of this same thing. I'm going to hide myself for a second so that y'all can see, but it's the 70-30 rule, and it's 70% toward fixed and variable expenses and 30% toward saving and debt. And this is just a way for you to not have to only have 50%. It's basically the exact same thing. So 50, 30, 20 or the 70-30 rule. These are the basic generic percentages that most finance gurus will talk about and highlight as different ways to set up your budget. So let's talk about why you could possibly want to use these particular percentages. Why you could possibly want to use these percentages. The very first reason is if you have variable income. So when I first started budgeting, I had a fixed income. Now I currently have a variable income because I do this full time, which means I don't know how much I'm going to get paid on a consistent basis. And when you have variable income, sometimes it's really difficult to figure out how much money you should be putting in each section of your budget. Sometimes it can be challenging to really figure it out based on how much you get paid, right? Like you might know specifically how to pay your bills, right? You're just paying your bills. But when it comes down to how much debt should I be paying off and how much savings should I put aside and, how much should I be spending on shopping and food? Sometimes that can get a little icky. It could get a little confusing. When you're on variable income, you may not be sure how much you should set aside for each particular thing. So sometimes budgeting percentages really can be helpful when you have variable income. The second way or second reason that budgeting percentages could possibly help your situation is you have a side hustle. So let's say you have your fixed expenses, you have your variable expenses, all of those are covered, but you're trying to pay down debt and you're trying to save a certain amount of money, or you're trying to save for a specific goal. You're trying to purchase a house. You're trying to buy a car. If you have those particular things going on, like some type of side hustle that you're trying to do where you're getting extra money that's above and beyond your regular paycheck is covering all of your bills, all of your fixed expenses, all of your variable income, but then you get this extra money from this side hustle and you're trying to figure out what you should do with it, how you should save it, how you should pay down debt, how much should you save for a particular goal that you're trying to save for. Budgeting percentages can be really helpful in that situation. That way, once again, no matter what you have coming in, no matter how much you're getting paid, you can be allocating the exact same percentages every single time you have some type of income coming in. Right? So that's the second reason why you could possibly want to use budgeting percentages. The third reason is you have a lot of goals. So some of us have a lot of different things that we're trying to do at the same time. So you are trying to purchase a home, you're trying to save, you're trying to pay down debt, you're trying to stash money for Christmas and stash money for birthdays. You just have a lot of different goals. And sometimes when you have a lot of different goals, it could feel like you're not making progress on any of them, or you're making progress on one and none of the others. And sometimes budgeting percentages can be really, really helpful in that situation because you can decide how many percentages you want to do under each particular thing. And you can always allocate the same percentage every single time you have money coming in. When you have all of those goals, it makes it easier when you can break it down into a whole bunch of different percentages. The fourth reason why percentages can be super helpful is you can really see how much of your money is going to any particular area. So this was one of the first ways that I use budgeting percentages. I use them to kind of check in with my budget at the end of the month instead of setting up my budget at the beginning of the month. So at the end of the month, I would just see what percentage of my money went to food, what percentage of my money went to shopping, and what percentage of my money went to my bills. I was able to see how much I was spending under each category and then decide based on the amount or based on a percentage if it was too much. So if more than 40% of our income went to food, I would say, okay, that's a little excessive just by telling based on my income. If 40% went to just my food, then that's a lot. So let's try and see how we can bring that percentage down. But sometimes when you're just looking at a number, like let's say you went $500 and it was the budget was 200, you went to 5, it may be kind of difficult to see how much more or how drastic that is compared to your income. But when you do it based on a percentage and you see 40%, 50%, this percentage went to food or went to shopping, it can really highlight how much you're actually spending. It really, really can help you to figure out how much more you are actually spending. So that's a great reason to use budgeting percentages as well. And the fifth reason is it's easier to guide you. So if you are just starting off with budgeting, you're still trying to figure out how this budgeting thing works, you're still trying to figure out how much you should allocate to each one of your percentages. This using budgeting percentages can be a great way to kind of help guide you over how much better you're doing or how worse you're doing, how much worse you're doing. So I like to also look at my budgets year, like a year annual comparison. And a lot of times when you're looking at your annual comparison, if you didn't make the exact same amount that you did last year, if you're not taking into account inflation, if you're not like it can be challenging to really, really analyze and see how well your budget is doing. It can be very, very challenging because there's so many things to really take into account when you're looking from year to year. Because I can't compare my December spending to my January spending because that's just two different months. And in the month of December, we have Christmas, right? So my December spending is going to be much, much more than my January spending. So I wouldn't do that as a comparison because that's apples and oranges. But I would compare December of last year to December of this year. That is a better comparison. And then I can look at and see what's the percentages we spent on gifts last year versus the percentages we spent on gifts this year. What's the percentages we spent on decoration? How much did we spend on food last December? And look at it based on percentages instead of just like how much money I made or just that particular budget. It's a better annual comparison. It's a better guide. It's a better reason for you to be able to really kind of analyze and see how well you are doing. All right. So this one, oh, Monique is saying she's also heard of 10% savings, 10% other goals, 60% needs, 20% wants. So these like percentages, the thing is with budgeting percentages, they have so many of them out there. For the large part, I do feel like they are very beneficial to most people. How you use them is the main thing that I wanted to get into with this class, though, because even though I feel like they're beneficial, I feel like they could be beneficial in different ways depending on your money personality and your money history and how you are currently budgeting your money right now. So that's really that's really what we're getting into today. All right. So these are the reasons why I believe that you should definitely use them. Let's get into my current budgeting percentages. So this slide shows my current budgeting percentages. This is how I currently use them. It's kind of tweaked from the 50, 30, 20 rule. It's really, really tweaked from there. But I am going to send out all of these slides to all of the members of the Organize You. So if you're a member of the Organize You, don't worry, you'll have access to these slides. You can print them, all of that. I'm going to add them to our membership site. But let me share with you my personal budgeting percentages and how I use them. First thing is I have 50% that's going toward my fixed expenses. These are my bills. All of this goes toward my bills. Now, I do 15% for variable expenses for all of the things that I just want to spend money on. That's like my wants, food and things like that. Because I tithe. So we have a giving of 10%. So we have 10% toward tithe. My savings is the short term, long term, and investing amounts. So 5% goes toward my short term savings or my things like sinking funds and all of birthdays and things like that. That's short term savings, any savings that I'm going to need in under a year. So that's how I identify what short term savings is for me. If we're going to need this money in under a year, it's going into my short term savings. If I don't know when I'm going to need this money, or it's something like my emergency fund, that's long term savings. And both of these categories get 5%. Investing is 10%, debt reduction is 5%, and then 50% toward fixed and 15% toward variable. That's how I am currently using them. Like I said before, you could divide up and decide what your own percentages are going to be. You could say, you know what, I'm going to do 60% for my fixed expenses and 10% toward my variable. I'm going to do 20% toward my variable expenses. You really get to decide how this is, because to be honest, I decided all 7 of these areas and I decided how we were going to use these particular 7. This is what we just decided to do. So let's talk about who this method may not work for. Who this method may not work for. So I talked about all of the areas where it would work. I talked about all of the areas where it would work. Let's talk about where it may not work. Number 1, you don't like to track expenses. If you don't really like to, or you're not in the habit of tracking your expenses on a daily basis or a monthly basis or a weekly basis, you just don't like to look at your expenses at all, that like expense tracking is really not your thing, you don't enjoy it, and you don't see yourself doing it anytime soon, this method may not work for you. It may not work for you. The reason why is because this method is highly relying on you knowing what your expenses are in order to categorize them. The only way you're going to be able to categorize them is if you know what each one of them are, right? I got to know which one, how much I spent on food in order to decide what that percentage is. I have to know how much we spend on bills every single month in order to know what these percentages are. So if you do not like to track your expenses, this method may not work for you. If you have a fixed low income, then this method may not work for you. The reason why is because a lot of time these methods are highly relying on like only 50% of your income going toward your fixed expenses, or only or it's like 60% or 70%. If you have a fixed lower income and you don't have any extra money coming in, then your percentage may be much, much higher than the normal that are falling under these percentage buckets, right? So if your percentage is, okay, 90% is going towards your bills, or 95% or 100%, and you really don't have any extra money, like we're living paycheck to paycheck, this method is going to be very, very challenging for you to do, mainly because you don't have the additional income in order to really figure out how to make this method work. Because if your bills are eating up a lot of your income, then it's challenging to allocate more to savings, or more to paying down debt, or more to your variable expenses. It's going to be challenging to do any of that, mainly because you have a fixed lower income, or you just have a lower income, and your income is, the disposable income that you have is really, really small, right? The third reason why is you usually go over budget. So if you normally go over budget on a consistent basis in any one of these areas, or you're struggling with impulse shopping and it's harder for you to track those expenses, then this method also may be very, very difficult for you. When I first started budgeting, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do this method consistently because we were always going over budget. Like, I was always going over budget. So I was having a really, really challenging time trying to figure out what expenses were going to go where. I was struggling with it because we were just over budget all the time. So none of the percentages made sense. It was like over 100% all the time because we just couldn't make it work. So it really took me some time to get adjusted to actually budgeting in the first place. Like, I just had to learn how to budget and track my expenses consistently before I started to do all of the other things like allocate, budget percentages. The next reason is you live in an area that have higher expenses. So sometimes it's harder to say that only 20% is going to go toward your mortgage if you live in California, right? You live in New York. Like, sometimes where you live really does make a difference with your percentages. And sometimes these fixed cookie cutter percentages will not work for you, mainly because you have a bunch of different areas that don't fit into the traditional budgeting percentage areas. You have a bunch of different things. So it's going to be challenging for you to actually put the different things within the bucket. The next one is your expenses are not simple. So if you have a bunch of different expenses that aren't easy to categorize, sometimes they fit within a certain category, other times they don't. Sometimes, like, if you always find every single month your categories are switching and changing, and it seems like it's not a simple method for you to try and figure out where does this expense fit. I find this a lot of times, if you have pets, then sometimes it will go under fixed expenses. Sometimes it's a variable expense. Sometimes it's under entertainment. It just depends on how you're categorizing different things. And I know sometimes people will switch their categories. So if you don't have solid categories that you're using consistently on a monthly basis, then a lot of times this will become very, very difficult for you to try and figure out how to use this method or how to use budgeting percentages. Now, once again, that doesn't mean that you just can't budget at all, right? We're just saying that this method may be challenging for you. It may be challenging for you to figure out this method. Now, one thing that I did is I did not start off with budgeting consistently, just on start off with budgeting percentages when I was creating my budget. So when I started with my budget percentages consistently, I didn't create budgets with it. I would only look at my percentages at the end of my budget. And I feel like even if budgeting percentages don't work for you when you are creating your budget, you can still use them when you're closing out your budget at the end of the month. That was the best time that I would actually use them, is when now I use them to create and to compare at the end of the month. But when I first started off, I could not get my budget percentages to work. Like, 50% was not happening. We weren't making enough. We were going over budget. We were living check to check. It just wasn't working. None of it was working. So at that time, I said, okay, I can't make these percentages work. 50, 30, 20 is just not going to happen. It's not possible right now. So what I did instead was just use budget percentages to see where we were and how we were currently spending money. So I would just look at the percentages based on my income, and just to see how far off we were from the standard of, the percentage that was out there. So if 50% was the goal for us to pay all of our bills with 50% of our income, I did one of two things. Where are we currently? And I think at the time when I first did it, we were at like 80%. 80% of our income was going toward all of our bills. I'm like, okay, if we're currently at 80%, I really wanted to be at the 50% because I wanted to get to that area where I could have 50% of my income just pay all of my bills. So I said I need to do one of two things. I either need to make more money or adjust our expenses. And I ended up doing both. So we ended up paying off both of our cars. I ended up paying down $25,000 in credit card debt. I ended up just like focusing in on all of the consumer debt that we had and got rid of all of that. And then I flipped it to focus on our income to try and increase our income as much as possible so that I could get closer to that 50% range. Now we are there. We're at to where 50% equals, we could pay all of our bills with 50%. But like I said before, we couldn't at one point. So that's one way that you could possibly do it, is look at where you are currently. Look and see, where am I right now? What percentage am I at? Is that even a goal of mine? Or is it a feasible goal? Depending on if you live in California or New York, or where living expenses are much, much, much higher, it may not be a feasible goal right now. Inflation is really high. It's like 7.5% right now. It may not be a feasible goal right now, which is okay. You just have to decide what's important to you and what's the percentage for you. You might say 50% is not a goal for me, but 65% is. I would love for my income I only need 65% of my income to pay all of my bills, right? So the last thing that I wanted to mention, and this is just something that I wanted to talk about, is what if this does not work for you? What do you do if this does not work for you? If budgeting percentages don't work for you at all, one thing that you could possibly do is um, develop a system of just deciding how much you're going to spend in a particular category, and then developing what I call the bank account system. I've talked about this before. This is something that I have loved to do when I first started budgeting. And this is because I was not expense tracking. I was not worried about, I wasn't expense tracking. I was just trying to make my budget work. And so what we ended up doing was setting up 5 bank accounts and moving the money on payday to make sure we didn't go over budget. So I would just move the money into my account, and then basically I would spend money on my spending account until that money was gone, right? And then that way I didn't have to really like track my expenses, because once it was gone, it was gone. And I knew that I could not spend any additional money until the very next payday. So that's one that I usually will recommend to clients if they feel like I can't make percentages work. I'm having a hard time even writing down my budget. I can't even do that. Like, it's just too much. I don't know how to make this work. I would say, okay, let's just set it up to where you're setting it up to where you kind of can't fail. It's the same thing that we would do when we're talking about, how people would say, oh, I can't get like someone would always tell me, I can't get my husband to put his clothes in a hamper. I can't get him to put his clothes in a hamper. He won't put his clothes in a hamper. And I'm like, where's the hamper? And it's like, it's in the bedroom. And I'm like, where's he putting his clothes? In the bathroom. All right. Put a hamper in the bathroom. Let's just make it easy on ourselves, right? Let's just move the hamper to him. So it's the same thing. If you feel like I can't budget because I just have, I'm not good at expense tracking. I'm not good in writing my numbers down. I'm not good. Okay, let's make it easy for yourself and create separate accounts to where we can just move money on there to there on payday. You have money in those accounts, and now all you got to do is check that balance to make sure that you still have money, but you don't have to track your expenses every single time. All right. So that is what I really, really want to talk to you about today. Also, if you're a part of Organize You, I am going to send you off the slides from today. And I'm going to have a special podcast that's just for you, that's going to talk more about that method that I was just talking about, to where if this budgeting percentages don't work for you, how I first started setting up my original budget. Before I had created a budget planner. This is before I really knew how to budget consistently. This is when my budget was kept going. I kept going over budget. How I finally got to a place where we would actually stick to our budget. And if you have any questions, please put your questions in the comment box now. I'm going to we have a little time to answer some questions today. So if you have any questions, please put them in there now. But so I'm going to dive more into that in that podcast episode, where I just tell you a little bit more about where we started. Because a lot of times when I'm sharing my numbers now, people will, make comments about, oh, it's because you have this much more money, or it's because you're just so good at budgeting now and you're so used to writing numbers down now. But in reality, I was not always that way. We were not always that way. Many times we struggled with writing our numbers down. We struggled with going over budget. We struggled with food a lot. And I still struggle with food. I talk about that all the time. Like, food is our number one expense. It's one of the things that we really, really love to spend our money on. And now I have started really to budget for splurges to make sure that we're still able to enjoy ourselves in that area. But if this is something that you have struggled with, then you want to find another method or another way to do this, right? So if y'all have any questions, let me know. This Wednesday, also, I am going to be sharing with you my monthly budget for the month of March, and we're going to be getting into my new routine for setting up my monthly budget, how I set it up in my budget planner, and how I really broke it down to where I really use these overall percentages to kind of plan out everything that we need. And then on Friday's video, we're going to be getting into my notebook. So I shared with you a couple of videos ago that I have my planner, which you all know I have my overall planner. And then I have this notebook, which is my brainstorm notebook, which I feel like people were getting confused between my happy planner notebook and this notebook. But this is my brainstorming notebook. I will use this on a daily basis to just write down and jot down notes. And then I have my happy planner notebook, which is this one, and I use this one to keep track of long-term notes. So things like routines and goals and just long-term things that I want to keep up with, I keep that in there. So on Friday, we're going to be diving into this notebook. So yes, so those are the videos that's coming up this week. Wednesday, we're going to be doing the budget with me. And then Friday is going to be my notebook flip through, where I am talking about that. All right. Looks like we're good. I don't see any questions, so I think we're good today. I think we're good. Y'all don't have any questions? Oh, wait, I do see one. I track all of my expenses, but on my bank statements, the number is always off. What am I doing wrong? So there could be a couple of things that's going on in here. There could be a couple of things. Number one could be look and see if there are any bank transaction fees or anything else that's going on. So a lot of times you may have like the bank monthly fee or something else that hits your account that throws off your number. So you want to check and make sure that you actually have all of the transactions that have that may have hit that you might have missed because you're like, I didn't swipe my card, but they still will take out a monthly fee or do something else. So you want to make sure that you're checking all the transactions. Second thing is you want to make sure the timing of the transactions. So here's the thing. A lot of times I will swipe my card, and this is specifically really for bank debit card transactions, which is really why I don't like to use my debit card anymore. I might do an entire video on why I don't like to use my debit card. But with your bank debit transactions, a lot of times they do not process them in order. They very, very, very rarely process them in order. Sometimes, let's say you swipe your card 3 times in one day, you think that it would go in transaction order of when you swiped it, right? That is not the case. A lot of times they will rearrange them based on the amount, based on where you were. It could be based on anything. That makes it extremely difficult to really try and figure out your ending balance after it's over. It's really hard for your balances to match, I should say. Now, you spent the money, so at some point it's going to come out. But a lot of times they will process them out of order, and it will be a transaction from 4 days ago that never posted and one that you did today that did post. Right. So it's like you got to kind of figure out what's pending, what's not pending, what has cleared, what hasn't cleared, which is one of the reasons why I really didn't like to use my debit card, because I felt like my transactions were really all over the place. And I started to use my credit card and just pay it off weekly with the money that was in my bank account. It was such a hard time to, whenever you're swiping your card, they're going to, and especially if you're like close to your, like your bank balance is actually close to the amount that you're spending, they will rearrange them because they really try and get fees attached to your account. They're going to try and hit you with an NSF fee any way possible. So if there's a way that they can rearrange it so that you're hit with an NSF fee, they will definitely do that. So it's harder to match to that bank balance. A lot of times I would just keep track of how much I had spent and just say, okay, this is the amount that I've spent. It may not match my bank balance, but I know that that's the money that I have left. I know that that's how much I've spent, and that's how much I should have left. But a lot of times it's not going to match, because a lot of times you would have to wait until all of them are completely cleared, like all of your transactions have posted, and you're not swiping your card, like you haven't swiped your card in 3 days. And then you probably can get it to match. But if you're trying to do it every single day, it's going to be very, very challenging to, really know what your bank balance is and for them to match. Like, you'll know based on what you have in your expense tracker, but it's probably not going to match your bank balance. Unfortunately, that's the way that they do it. And it's very challenging to figure it out. Is the percentage based on the monthly income, or could we do it by paycheck to see if it works for us? You could do it either way. So my percentages are based on my monthly income. I do like to look at it based on our monthly income, and then I will divide up what's going to go where. However, if you say, you know what, that's not going to work with my monthly income. I tried it with my monthly income and it's just not working. Try it with your paycheck. Change the percentages, move them around, make them smaller, make them bigger. Do whatever you need to do to see how you could make it work for you. And you could even see, because when I first started, I would just see what my percentages were beforehand. So what was my percentages when I first started off? And when I first started off, my fixed expenses, my bills were 85% of our check. So that was my first percentages. I'm like, it's 85%. So I'm going to just write down 85%. It don't even make no sense for me to try to write down 50 because it's nowhere near 50, right? So I started off with 85, 5% going toward debt. And I think 5% was no, it was like 7% going toward variable expenses, and then the rest was savings, something like that. But you can see what you're currently doing and start with those percentages and then work up to the goal of what you would like it to be. It does not have to be the 50-30-20. It doesn't have to be 70-30. It could be whatever you have decided it to be. But the main point is that once we decide, it will help us to build in the routines and the habits and all of the things that we want, because we'll know. And the more that we know about our money, the easier it is to organize it, the easier it is to figure it out. I'm trying to plan 1 month ahead for my budget. How do I prioritize for 1 month ahead in my other savings categories? Make it one of your saving categories. So you could, one thing that I did when we were doing 1 month ahead, it was like I had a Christmas saving category, I had a travel savings category, I had birthday savings category, and I had a 1 month ahead saving category. I was actively just saving any extra money that I could toward my 1 month ahead account. So it was just like another saving category, just like all of the others. Sometimes I could fund it. Like, let's say we had a really good month, or I made a little bit of extra income, or we had a side hustle that came in. I would put money into that account. Sometimes I didn't have extra money to put into that account. Like sometimes I'm like, we don't really have anything extra to put into it. But I would just keep it there. And the more I tried every single month to put something in it, after a while, I just started to get into the swing of it, and I really started to be able to put money into it. But if you decide where you're going to keep that money and what it's for, then every time you can fund it, you'll be able to. Like, you may not be able to do it every single time because, you may have other categories that are just more important. But after a while, you'll be able to start to see, if you get some extra money, how you can fund it. So I would definitely try and fund it anytime you got some extra money, anytime you can. Thank you so much. Please hit the like button. Please, please, please hit the like button. It does help me out with the overall YouTube algorithm. It helps. Will paying off the credit card weekly help raise one's credit score? Yes. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. So one thing to note, and we did a class on this a while ago on how to raise your overall credit score. But it does two things for me. It does two things for me. Well, it does three things, actually. Now that I think about it, it does three things. The first thing that it does is it does help with my credit score. Because I was paying it off, I was never paying interest. I was constantly seeing increases in my overall credit score because I was paying it off before it was actually due. Now, they do have a specific timing of it all. They do have like a specific timing of exactly when you can pay it to make sure it's going to hit. But I just pay mine every week because I don't like to have a balance. I really don't like to have a balance because I want to make sure that the right money, like we're not spending money in both areas, right? I want to make sure that the money it's already been spent, I'm just paying it off from the credit card. So it does help my credit score. The second thing it does is I get points. So my specific credit card is a Southwest credit card. So I get travel points for spending on the card, even though I pay off the bill every single week. Every time I spend $1, I get a point. So I buy all of our food, all of our variable expenses go on this card. So that includes food, groceries, and restaurants. It includes gas. So anytime we need any gas in either one of our cars, we will use the credit card. Entertainment. So if me and my husband do we go to the movies or we do something like that, I will use my credit card, and shopping. So those are the four main categories, and personal expenses as well. So anytime I am doing any type of variable spending, I am using my credit card, and then I pay it off at the end of the week. We have allocated $500 weekly to all of our variable expenses. So all five of those categories get $50 to $100, where food is $200. But all of the other ones get $50 to $100, and then I will just pay off. I already have the $500 set aside in my regular account. At the end of the week, I'm gonna see how much we spent. Oh, we spent $450, we spent $400, we spent $385. I just pay off the card. And then if I have a difference, like let's say the budget was 500, I spent 300, then I would put $200 in my savings account, or $200 pay down a debt or something like that. So that's the second way that it kind of like helps me out, because I also get those travel points, and I don't pay for travel. I can't tell you the last time I paid for a flight. I have been doing this for about 2 years, and every flight I book with points. I always book with points. So it really does help me in that way. And the third way it helps me is being able to really see my expense tracker, because a credit card is different from looking at my debit card. I am not trying to balance out my bank account. I am just paying off the credit card. It's only all of the expenses that have actually cleared. It's in order. I'm not trying to figure out what's going to clear next. All of that, I just pay it off. All right. So that's the three ways that using the credit card just really, really helps me. In my bank account for deposits, I just include the dollar amount. For spending, I round up to the next dollar. This is always a way to have more money in my account than in my checkbook. That's a great way to do it. So if you're trying to use your debit cards, you do not trust yourself with your credit card, do this, round up. That's a great way to make sure that you have enough money in your bank account. I love that. I absolutely love that. Should I put the 1 month ahead in another account rather than keeping it in our swipe account? Yes. 100 times yes. Mainly because if it's in your swipe account, you just find reasons. I promise you, you just find reasons to spend money when it's in that account, when it's in that spending account, in that swipe account. You will find a reason to need it. But if you move it, put it in the savings account, or even if you take out the cash and keep it as a cash envelope, like keeping it separate is a great way to remind yourself that this is definitely something separate that you don't want. You want to make sure that you continue to save for it. When it's in that swipe account, you just end up swiping, and you end up using it. They say largest first to make us overdraft. Yes, I knew that it was some type of way that the banks do it. So they will rearrange your transactions by largest first, and the deposits are after the withdrawals and the payments. This is why the auto transfer to savings is scheduled for the 4th of the month. Yes. So you really want to really pay attention to your bank balance and how they're processing those transactions, because this is the case. They do really try and make it to where your overdraft, it hits and it hurts you. So they will rearrange those transactions very, very quickly and really try and mess you up. How do you establish sinking funds when all of your bills are on auto pay to your credit card monthly? So if you are trying to do sinking funds and all of your bills are on auto pay, you can still do all of your bills being on auto pay. That's fine. You just need to establish where your sinking funds are going to be. So I don't pay all of my bills with my credit card, but I do pay all of my variable expenses with my credit card. All of my bills come out of my bill account but I have cash sinking accounts, which I have like 4 of those. And then I have another savings account that is specifically for my short term savings or anything that I will need under 1 year, sinking funds, whatever. So when I get paid and the money hits my bill account, I will leave what I need there for my bills and then move money that I need for my sinking funds into that account. So I would establish it by setting up a new account. I would have some type of other system, either cash sinking funds or a debit or another credit or another account sinking funds, so that you are able to make sure that that money is separate in another account from like where your bills or where your spending money is. So leave some money in there for spending, move the money that you need for all of your bills. If they're going to hit your credit card, they're all on auto pay and then it auto pays off your credit card. That's fine. But you want to move that additional money that you need for sinking funds. If you need it for Christmas or whatever it may be, you want to move that somewhere else as well. You want to move it into another account or take it out in cash, put it in the cash envelope. That way you still have it separate and apart from this other money or from your credit card. Will you show your budget wallet and compare to your regular wallet? Sure. Wait, where's my budget? So, this is the wallet that I got. I'm thinking you might mean this one. This is the one that I got from Notique. So, this is their large cash envelope wallet. So this is the one that I will use. This is for my sinking funds. So I use this size for my sinking funds, which this is their larger one. Let me see if I have the smaller one. So she has 2 sizes. She has like the leather one like this, and then she has this one. So this is the one that I'm currently using. I am not currently using this one, but I still have it. But these are both her larger sizes. They are both her larger sizes. The main reason why I use this one is because this is my planner and they just match. And so I like them both together. But this is the one that I'm currently using for my cash envelopes. And if you want to see, this is my current wallet. So I have bigger wallets though. So this is the wallet and this is my cash envelope sinking funds. However, this never leaves my house. I always take the money that I need out of here, but I do not take this out of my house because it has a nice amount of money in it and I don't want to lose it. I don't want to lose it. How many accounts can you open before your credit score changes? So I'm guessing you mean credit card accounts. Tell me if you mean credit cards account or if you're talking about different types of accounts, because your credit score can be affected based on a number of things. If you're looking at a house, it will only get hit once, but if you're looking at a car, it could really impact your score overall, because when you walk into a car dealership, they usually have multiple lenders, so they will ding your credit a bunch of different times. So it can really affect you overall if you're talking about credit cards. I personally don't like to have any more than 2 or 3 major credit cards. I don't really do store credit cards at all. And I only like to have like 2. I have an American Express card and I have my Visa. That's it. Mainly because it's not really because of the credit score thing, because if you are paying them off, it doesn't really matter. It is the management of them, like making sure that we don't go over. So if your credit score won't be affected unless you're not paying them, if you open them and you are able to get them all and not, you're paying them all in full, it will only go up. because you'll have a lot of credit and you're paying them all off. So it will only work in your favor. It's only an issue if you're not paying them. That's when it becomes a major issue and it hurts your score. But overall, I feel like your score constantly goes up with every 45 to 60 days, especially if you're paying off your credit card in full. Is there any way to avoid fees on savings and checkings account? Usually, if you want to avoid a fee, you just have to see what their daily limit or daily balance that you have to have in an account. I know with mine, I think I want to say it's like $1,500 or $2,500, something like that, that has to be kept in the account in order for you to avoid a fee. And so, if you don't want a fee or you just need direct deposit into the account, it depends on the bank. But usually it's like if you have direct deposit or if the bank balance is like $2,500 or more, then you're good to go. You're good to go. All right. I just got an envelope from Izzy and Liv. Oh, cool. Yes. Post it, please. I would love to see it. Because I really do enjoy the envelope wallets. I feel like they really just keep everything super organized. What kind of paperwork comes with the envelope wallet? So it comes with 6 wallets. So you'll get 6 envelopes, and then it comes with trackers. And I want to say there are like 12 trackers in here. And so the trackers are like, it says the date, the item description, the amount, and the balance. And then at the very back, they also have just like some daily to pay to buy pages. There's like maybe 10 or 15 of those, and to do pages. It's like 7 of those. But it's a really nice wallet. I really do enjoy it. I love it. Notique, I feel like, makes some really good products. And so even with this one, even though I'm not currently using this one, it's still a very high quality product. I really do love both of them. The only reason why I'm in the other one is because it matches. It just matches my current one. If I have a few store credit cards and don't have any balance, should I cancel them? Would it hurt my credit score? So overall, anytime you have a credit card and you cancel it, it will hurt your score, at least for the short term. It will hurt your score. Main reason why it will hurt your score is because you have a credit card, which means like your credit score is based on the total number of credit that is available to you. So if you close a credit card, you're basically reducing the amount of limit that you have out there, right? So if that credit card is $2,000 limit and you close it, now you're making your limit $2,000 less because it's adding up all of the credit that you have across all of the credit cards. So it will hurt it in the short term. However, I still am a believer in having some type of strategy and not just leaving them open if you know you're never going to use it, because you could possibly close it and open up something else that is more beneficial to you. So at one point in time, I was keeping all of these store cards open just because I didn't want my credit score to hurt, but I was never using them. And I just kind of had them because I didn't want to hurt my credit score. But I just ended up closing them and getting my next credit card with a $25,000 limit, right? Like I ended up getting my credit card or my Visa with a better limit, with a lower interest rate, and with something that I could use like points for an airplane that I knew we were going to end up doing more travel. So I would just figure out what you want to do, even if it includes closing them and hurting your score for a short period of time. So I might hurt my score, like I hurt my score for about 3 months. And then by the time I got the new credit card and that limit went on my credit score and it was $25,000 and I was able to get all these points, my score shot right back up. It shot right back up 100 points, and I was even better than where I started. So I think that you need to think about it. I think that you need to think about it. I think you need to think about what's the overall strategy. What do you want to do? Because it will hurt your score, but it's short term, right? Your score is going to go up and down, up and down. And so you could possibly just find a way to change it to where it's going to benefit you and you're able to use it. I did do a video on this particular envelope system. So if you want to see it, it's definitely on YouTube. Just put cash envelope system, the organized money in YouTube, and you will definitely see it there. Do you recommend? I recommend a checking account for sinking funds, mainly because if it's for short-term sinking funds, which it probably is, meaning that you're going to use this money in under a year, I usually recommend checking accounts because the money is just easier to take out and you will not get fees for taking out. There's so many limits on savings accounts. Can't take out more than 6 times, can't do this, that kind of thing. Have to have this minimum balance and all these reasons why they will charge you a fee. So I like to keep mine in a checking account. That way I can avoid all of that. Does budgeting and bill pay strategy change when in retirement? Would you be willing to do a video for retirees? I have worked with a few retirees and we did change their bill pay and budgeting strategy. I will say this. I do not do budgeting by percentages for retirees. I usually don't do it this way. And usually we only focus in on one goal, 1 or 2 goals. If it's a saving and a debt goal, usually that's it. Because usually we're working with a fixed income and we are trying to make sure that the money is allocated properly and correctly, and it's going to last as long as possible. We have everything set up the way that it needs to be set up. So yes, I'll put out a poll out there and see how many people want that video. And if a bunch of people want it, yes, I am definitely willing to do it and share what I did for my clients who were retired and to make sure that they had a good, solid strategy. All right. So thank you all so much for joining me on today. Like I said, this entire month, every single Monday, we're going to be talking about some type of money concept. So if you have a question or a video or idea for our next live class, something on budgeting that you would like us to tackle, or some type of money topic that you would like us to tackle, please leave it in the comments below. Even if you're watching the replay, please put it in the comments below. I would love to hear from you and love to hear any of your other ideas. If you're a part of the Organize You and I did not get to your question, if you're a part of the Organize You, please text me. You can definitely text me after this is over and I will I will answer all of your questions. All right. So thank you all so much for joining me and I will see you on next Monday. Remember, we have 2 videos coming out this month or this week. On Wednesday, budgeting, monthly budget with me, and on Friday, my notebook organization video. So I will see you all in those videos. Bye, guys. Thank you all so much. Bye.